So good evening and welcome to our final panel on the myth of the strong Black woman. This panel is a part of a series called Breaking the Silence in the Black Community. And I'm Jonnie Wilson, and I'm a sexual assault outreach counselor for the Hays-Caldwell Women's Center. Before we get started, I would like to thank our sponsors, the Hays-Caldwell Women's Center, the Dunbar Heritage Association, and last but not least, NAMI of Central Texas. Our topic today is about the importance of self-care. But before we get started with that, I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, Vanessa Westbrooks, to let us know who's on the panel today.
Good afternoon, everyone. So glad you are joining us for this last panel. Well, I say last, but who knows? We may bring this back again because we've got so much positive feedback. Let me introduce the wonderful women, my distinguished colleagues who are on this panel with us this afternoon. Of course, you've already heard from Jonnie Wilson. We also have Dr. Queverra Moten. We have Miss Claudette Blythe. We have Pastor Jonafa Banbury. We have our distinguished colleague from Wimberley, Sandra Organ. And we also have our technical support that I'd like to give some shout outs to, and that's to Kira Nicholson. Thank you so much, Kira, for being our TI girl this afternoon. So with that said, we have a series of questions that we're going to ask the panel, and they will respond to. Our format is very similar to what we've been doing thus far. And with that said, and everyone now been introduced, I'm going to take just a second and ask Dr. Moten if she would give us a synopsis of the last two panel discussions before we move into our questions for this evening. Dr. Moten.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. And thank you to my amazing co-panelists. This has been an amazing journey the last 3 months with each of you. I've learned so much from your experiences and the many lessons and the similarities of our journeys has been truly an enlightening experience for me. During the month of February, we discussed addressing the historical context of the myth of the strong Black woman and the misrepresentation of Black women in media. And a quote came to mind from George Monbiot. It said, "What you see is not what others see. We inhabit parallel worlds of perception, bounded by our interests and experience. What is obvious to some is invisible to others." During that first discussion, a lot of us had the same similarities of, even despite who we are or what we have accomplished, society still dictated to us what our value was. What we took from that session is we determine our own value, and understanding our worth and what we bring to society is critical to building, to developing, and to allowing others to see what's true and not just what is perception. A lot of us during that first discussion talked about the mental strain on our own mental health of what it's like to not meet that quota, or to not be in a box that people say you should be in, or you should be strong enough, Black woman, to carry what others cannot. You should be strong enough, Black woman, to be able to do more, to prove that you're where you deserve to be, but we still need you to qualify to fit here. As we took ownership of our truths in that moment, we took ownership that our own mental health is important, and our own self-value and our self-worth is important. And who we are is just that. It's who we are. We are a gift to the world, and we are a gift to society. Moving on to month 2, part 2, in March, we discussed the implications of when Black women embrace the myth of the strong Black woman. And I had to ask myself, what is the myth of the strong Black woman? And the myth is just that this woman is strong despite any and everything that comes at her. An unknown author once said, true strength is keeping everything together when everyone expects you to fall apart. Another unknown author said, anyone can give up. It's the easiest thing in the world to do, but to hold it together when everyone else would understand if you fell apart, that's true strength. Unfortunately, unknown author, wherever you are, that is not truth according to the myth of the strong Black woman. We are determined, and it's a myth that we can carry, and we never fall apart. But during that discussion, a lot of us in our own mental health struggles discuss losing strength, losing the value and understanding how we were taught and we were conditioned, not only by society, but our mothers, who also had to be the strong Black woman, taught us that strength was a necessity and it was never optional. But what is true strength? Why do I feel as a Black woman, I have to carry the weight of the world? In the end, we decided, again, our mental health is a priority and self-care is a priority. And with that being said, it's important not to feel like we have to measure up to what even society defines what we as Black women can carry. You don't have to carry the whole world on your shoulder as a Black woman. After all these things are just a myth. So I'm excited to continue the discussion. I'm excited that each of you are here to join us. And I would like to turn it back over to Ms. Vanessa.
Thank you. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, we are happy you're joining us, and we hope that the synopsis was a way of you getting caught up on our discussion that we've had over the past couple of months. So again, I've seen more people join our screen. Thank you so much and welcome. So with that, ladies, I am going to start off with our first question for this panel discussion. As a Black woman, why do you think that it is essential to have a self-care strategy? Remember, that's our focus for this evening, this idea of self-care, which to some degree among Black women, that could be a myth. It's that we don't care for anybody else. I mean, we care for everybody else, but never ourselves and the repercussions from that. So who would like to start off and answering or giving a response to this first question? Why do you think it is essential to have a self-care strategy?
I'll go first.
Thank you.
I think it's important to have a self-care strategy because of this very discussion that we're having, that we are all having to unlearn and outlive this myth of being strong and being able to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, like Dr. Queverra, talked about in the opening, that we have self-identified as strong Black women. It was a narrative that was handed and passed down to us. That being the case, having a self-care routine and a self-care regimen acknowledges the fact that we say to ourselves that we're important and that we acknowledge the fact that we cannot carry everything without taking a moment to stop and reflect on the different stressors that we encounter throughout the day. It reminds me of, the protocol that you're given when you fly on a plane, especially with a young child. And they tell you that if you have a child with you and, you lose oxygen in the plane, the first thing you do is you put the mask on yourself. Then you turn over to your child and you put the mask on your child. But that's the complete opposite. I mean, that almost sounds heretical and antithetical to every thought process that we could possibly have, that if there's a crisis, if there's something that's going on, I have to take care of everybody around me first. But that, puts us in the mindset that it's like, I can't take care of anybody else and I can't do anything unless I'm well, unless I'm taking care of myself, and unless I have what I need to be able to then go back out and help others. So that's why I think it's important.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. Excellent. Who would like to go next? Claudia, how about you?
Sure. Honestly, I feel I'm in complete agreement with Pastor Jonafa. I definitely know I used to teach parenting to young mothers, and that exact analogy is the one that we used about the airplane. So that's cool. But yeah, no, I really feel like it does feel counterintuitive to do that. It's a struggle to have to figure out how am I going to do self-care and find the time to do that and still feel as though you are nurturing your family and taking care of your family. Sometimes it feels like, well, trying to take care of me first, if we're trying to do it in chronological order, if you will, may seem harsh. It may seem like it's not the right thing to do. But there's ways around that. And what I mean by that is, just like this conversation we're having, this is a means of self-care. Getting a chance to sit and talk with women that understand you, that get the journey, they get what you've been through, they get what you're going through because they have a similar situation. And just taking an hour to sit and just talk, that's self-care. When you get an opportunity to indulge in something that you really enjoy, even if it's 15 minutes here and there, I think that that's definitely self-care. And you just build that into the day. I think that that's a very important thing that we do, but I think that that's something we've always kind of done when we go. I remember when my grandmother would call up her sisters, because it was a bunch of them, and just chit chat on the phone, and they talk about what they're cooking, what you making for dinner. That's their means of self-care, even though they're still grinding it out. They're in the kitchen on the phone, but they're getting that connection. And when they get done, there's something great to eat, something amazing that they've made, some dessert, which I love, and you get a chance to indulge and be a part of that, So those are just a couple of examples, but I do believe that is self-care. I think it's important. I think that we've kind of learned, and I don't want us to overlook that we have found ways to build self-care into our regimen. I think that now it's just, we're putting a label on it. We're saying, hey, this is what we want to do, and we want to be proactive about, our self-care. Now we want to get our nails done. Specifically, go take that time out for an hour and get our nails done, or pamper ourselves in some way. And I think another piece of it is that it's been made mainstream to be able to do so. Now it's the norm. I know I didn't have my pedicure done the other day, and I almost felt like I shouldn't even be out at the restaurant if, I don't have my nails done. It's gotten to that point now, but at one time it wasn't this very intentional kind of thing to do. It just kind of, you got it built into your workday. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Good insight. Good insights. All right, Miss Sandra, how about you? Give us some input.
Well, yes, I I was just sitting here taking a few notes. I was thinking about how important it is to not only take care of yourself, but when you do, you model it for your family as well, that they take care of themselves. And that's mommy's making that a priority, then it's going to be, I should make that a priority in my life. And I was reflecting as you were speaking, Claudia, about how actually our white sisters has shown us how to do that, right? They usually hire people like us to take care of their kids while they go get it done, right? So I learned a lot from my white sisters in how to pamper myself, take care of myself, get a massage. And I guess partly as a dancer in that kind of a realm, self-care it's all about everything you eat, everything you do with your body, how much rest you get. You have to take care of yourself so that you can function in that high stress and physical environment. And so I think I learned as well things to do to take care of myself from just that profession of being a ballerina. But and there are things that once I stopped dancing professionally, I had to kind of dropped some things, and I thought, no, this is still something I need to take care of me as a person, to take care of my body, to take care of, I don't think I had nails until I quit dancing. So to take care of, and I surely wasn't going to let anybody touch my feet until I got married. So anyway, I just, and that was after I finished my dance career, because I needed all of those calluses, right? So kind of an interesting journey getting there. But I think the other parts that we're going to look at on the wheel of self-care, having a circle of sisters, the spirituality and meditative time, the yoga, the stretching, those kind of things. I'm sure we'll talk about those later, but those are the ways that I find that I take care of myself.
Okay, thank you. All right, Queverra, your turn. Share with us.
I think I kind of look at myself like, when you go in the grocery store and you get flowers and it comes with the package of things you're supposed to put in the water, and my flowers still end up dying anyway. But what I realize is that I come with a lot, right? And I know we touched on it a little bit. So for me, self-care is there's knowing what things I'm going to need to be able to give myself the space and the grace to be able to care for myself. Because number one, I'm going to go ahead and admit I'm a people pleaser. You didn't know that already. And so I tend to, even if, I have to see what package I need to put in my water so that I can care for myself, so I can have a little bit more shelf life. But I recognize without those key components that come with me, I don't last long. I crack, I fall apart, and I am not able to keep my mask on. And my mask on is meaning letting everyone know I have it all together. But that's when I start crumbling apart. So really it's just identifying and knowing those key pieces that I need to be able to hold it all together, and making sure I have those pieces so that I am exercising self-care, not just pretending. Like I didn't just go get the flowers. I'm actually putting forth the effort and being intentional with myself, and that's the hard part, is learning how to be more intentional with myself than I am with other people.
Good point. Thank you.
Good one.
Ms. Jonnie, your self-care strategy, or lack thereof, if there is one. Tell me, what's going on?
Well, yes, I do have it now. There was once upon a time I did not, and I crumbled because I, like Queverra was saying, people pleaser. That was me, and still some ways I'm very much of a helper, but because of some of the things I went through of always trying to help everyone, that I learned very well, it wasn't quickly, because it was like in my 40s before I really understood what it is to have self-care. Raising 3 children by yourself and going to school full-time, working 3 jobs, I did not have a self-care strategy. And it wasn't until my body broke down, because I was not only taking care of my children, I was taking care of my whole family, because I tend to be the rescuer in the family. So everyone came to me, and they were grown. Okay, everybody was grown, but if there's an argument or whatever, but that started when I was a child, because I was the mediator between my mother and father, very young. And, my mother would say, go tell your dad this. And I'd go over there and I'd tell dad, and dad said, go tell your mom this. And so that was something that I was socialized to do, was to mediate, to rescue everyone in my family. And it wasn't until I had a breakdown of my body that I really had to redefine who I was as a woman, and redefine what it is to take care of myself, because I had that myth of the strong Black woman. That was me, at one time. But over the years, my strategy is I'm very much of an introvert. People don't know that, but I am. And so I used to try to fit on everybody else's shoes, but that's not who I am. I am an introvert, and I say it proudly, because I rejuvenate myself by being alone. And who are close to me know that if they call me and I don't answer, doesn't mean that I won't call them back, because I really have to block out everything in order for me to rejuvenate spiritually. So that, to me, it's since that breakdown in my 40s, I am 62 now, I have learned to have a balance of my spiritual life, my physical life, and my mental life. It has to be a balance, so that's what it is. It's very important for me.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I want to close off this question by saying, I now know how to say no as a part of this self-care. It was always, sure, I can do that. Oh yeah, no problem. And I did that for several reasons. In my line of work, the number of women of color, African American women, was so few that I felt I needed to represent, right? So if I needed to go speak to a group, I did it. If I had to go work on a special project, I did it. If I had to go bail out someone who wasn't doing what they should have been doing, I did it. It was all about, sure, yeah, I can do that. And it was about Jonnie, like you, in my 50s, where I started saying, okay, wait just a minute. No, I don't believe I can do that, but thanks for asking. And the first time I did it, I felt guilty. I felt real guilty. Oh my God, I should have just gone ahead and done it. And it didn't come out well. And now we have to regroup. And I put all of that on my shoulders, but it wasn't my project. So I had to get past that and start saying, I appreciate it, but no, I don't think I will. So this idea of being able to say no because you need a timeout. As Queverra said, you need, your shelf life is only so far, and then you have to be able to tend to it. And so you're going to time out. I need a little bit of me time to regroup, and then let's look at things a little bit later. So that's my perspective on that, is the idea to be able to say no does not mean you're being selfish. And considering how many times you say yes, one no, it's not that bad for the most part. Could be a few more no's, but let's say out of 10 yeses, there may be one no. So I need to still work on that a little bit, and I am. All right, well, great perspective, my colleagues, in regards to this first question of the essentialness of having a self-care plan. So my next question to you is, so what happens if there's not a balance there? What's the experience? What's the outcome of not having this balance? And as we take a look at this perspective of looking at my self-care, if something is unbalanced, then what happens? And let's start, Jonnie, let's start with you. We're gonna go back the other way. Let's start with you.
Well, for me, what happens is that I become very exhausted, because it's something that I'm lacking. If it's the spiritual life, I have to have that balance of my spiritual, physical, and mental. So if something is lacking, I become exhausted. Things become a chore that really have been a passion for me. If I don't have that balance, you know. So for me, it's all about making sure I have that, because it just doesn't work for me at all. It just really exhausts me, tires me out, become a little bit grumpy with people that I shouldn't be, you know, because I'm not taking care of myself.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Sandra, that unbalance, what happens?
For me, I do feel like it does kind of spill out into my interactions with other people. And my stress level goes up and anxieties. And so maybe causes some sleeplessness. I too am a people pleaser. So disappointing somebody with a no versus stressing myself out with a yes. You start to weigh that, and you just, and I think that you realize the emotional energy is going to take its toll on somebody in your life, if not you personally. And it's not worth losing sleep over, or to say, okay, I might give up a little bit of sleep so I can go get this thing done for myself, but it's going to rejuvenate me. And it's going to fill my cup runneth over and out. So I need to refill and replenish. And if that means sitting still for a while, that means going to get a massage, going out with my friends or taking my dog on a walk, which you may have heard just now. That's the thing that's going to rejuvenate me and make me a better spouse, a better teacher, a better artist too. So my dog might have the last word here, so I'm going to mute.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Pastor, tell us.
Well, like, you know, the other ladies have said, of course, there's a physiological response. Your body begins to activate the fight or flight response in your body, and you begin to feel the stress in your body. And that's what happens to me, because mentally, I'm really good at putting that somewhere, you know, I'm real good at it. I can put it somewhere, you know, because I do the spiritual self-care. But what I've learned, even as somebody who has a spiritual outlet, I pray, I meditate, and, you know, so on and so forth, it doesn't mean that your body and your is not going to respond to the stressor. And I think that's a misconception in the faith community, that when we pray about it, that it goes away. No, it doesn't go away. You may be able to mentally deal with it, but the stress of whatever is happening to you, it still shows up in the body. And so I've had to learn, you know, that I have to do a combination of things, and that my faith alone will not be enough to simply get me through difficult times and being imbalanced. The other thing is that you build up a resentment, because when there is an imbalance and you're doing things for other people and you're taking care of other people and other circumstances more so than you are yourself, the expectation is that you think that other people are going to appreciate you being so super fantastic, that you are this great superwoman, and that you are superb, and that everybody's going to appreciate you being, you know, all things to all people. And then when you realize that they could care less, that they have no problem with you running yourself down in the ground, they won't say thank you, they won't reciprocate, they won't bail you out when you need that care in return, you become resentful, and you walk around giving folks side eyes and stank lips, duck lips, neck rolls, and they like, girl, what's the problem? You know, I don't get it, you know. And so you build up this resentment. And then, you know, I finally had to realize, it's like, your husband does not care that his underwear are folded up and ironed and starched. I never did that, but I'm just using it as an example, you know. But I did used to get up early in my marriage, and I would cook him breakfast at 4 o'clock in the morning. And he literally one time took the grits and the eggs and the stuff I put in and worked so hard, dumped it in a coffee mug. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. That's it. And then he told me, because I was mad, he said, I don't eat breakfast like that. I didn't grow up eating breakfast. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, my body is not ready to break fast. And so I'm like, you know what? You were doing this for you because you thought it was going to make you look a certain way or feel a certain way or make people feel a certain way about you. But that's not true. So the resentment that builds up from you doing all of these things for people who could care less, you know, with no ill intention, they just don't care. They don't care. So that's me. And I went off. So I'm going to go back on mute because I went off on a tangent.
You went off on a tangent, huh?
Went off.
That's
I
okay.
learned some things.
That's okay. Get it out, girl. Get it out.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to go with Queverra. Tell us what happens, that unbalance.
Well, for me, I'm gonna be completely authentic with you all because I feel like I can. A few years ago, that unbalance almost cost me my life. I tried to drive my vehicle off of a highway, and it wasn't because I didn't love my life or I didn't love myself. It was just that I had reached the capacity I had. Each one of us have a capacity. And I think that's why I love the work that I do now with the NAMI Central Texas is making people understand that it's okay to need support and it's okay to need help. And so I have to consciously tell myself every day, Queverra, on this day, you're not going to wear a cape. You are not a superhero, and God didn't give you superhero powers. So today, so I wake up, most people wake up putting on their cape. No, I have to wake up taking off my cape because it almost cost me my life. And so it's so critical and so important to understand yourself. And not just understand yourself, but understand your capacity. I don't know about you ladies, but whenever I pack my suitcase, it is overflowing. And when I moved back here from London, my suitcase is busted. So I had to leave clothes, shoes, and purses in England because I didn't have a suitcase that worked. And that's just like us. We're all different types of suitcases, and there's not a whole lot that can really fit without being charged an overweight price. You have to understand what is your overweight price. But what I recognized, even when I was in England, is when I repacked my suitcase, but it was still overweight. It was so heavy that I had reached the capacity for the overweight price.
Ooh.
I packed way too much.
Yeah, you did.
How often are we packing way too much on ourselves? We think, oh, we can take just a little bit extra. But sometimes even that little bit extra exceeds the capacity to extend. And I had to recognize, Queverra, you can no longer overextend yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. Great analogies, by the way. Great analogies for everybody to be able to say, yeah, I can so relate to that. All right, let's see, Miss Claudia.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, for me, I would say mostly like guilt. That's what I experience the most. I definitely agree with the resentment piece. I definitely agree that the overwhelming piece of it. But there's this, I think the one that gets me the most is just the guilt that I feel. Because just like Jonnie, I was raised where I was the oldest, so I got all the responsibility. My mother was a single mom, so I literally had to take care of my brothers and sisters since I was 5, and she left the house. So I'm in the house with the doors locked and I got to figure it all out. So I had to, instead of me feeling bad about that, I just wanted to do a good job. I wanted to make sure my mom was happy and that she did not have extra stress. And so that same theme has followed me my whole life. So ironically enough, my stress comes from when I'm not, I feel guilt when I'm doing it because of when I'm taking care of everybody, if I overreach my capacity, right? If I reach my capacity, I feel guilty about it because I feel like I need to be doing that. And I still struggle with that. But the only thing that saved me, I think, or that my realization came from me understanding that I am about quality versus quantity. So I need to be able to do quality work. And work is really my solace. That's my self-care. When I can jump on my computer and create something or do something that helps me to just ground me and say, I'm gonna go back and tweak that and make it really great. I might not make a lot of them, but whatever it is I'm doing, if I can work on that, it really brings me that peace and fulfillment that I'm looking for. And so that is my self-care. But if I overextend myself to where my quality of work or the quality of care or quality of service that I'm providing is starting to lack, that's when I know I've reached my capacity. That's when I know that, because I'll start to feel that guilt that I need to kind of cut back on something. I still struggle with the no, I still struggle with the no. I could sit here and say, oh no, I got it all. I'm past 40. So, and I'm still struggling with the no. So I haven't figured that all out. What I have figured out is that for me, if it seems like I cannot do this without producing great work, then I'll say, you know what, I could get to it later, or after I get something off my plate, or I'll try to figure out some way around that. But I still struggle with saying no. So, but yeah, that's my story.
All right, that's your story. You're sticking to it. All right.
I'm sticking to it.
So I'll end this one by saying, when there's an unbalance, I get impatient. And it is not uncommon for me to say, you are not moving fast enough for me. I get very impatient. I want it done. I want it done there. I want it done right. And I need to move on to the next project. So, because I got a lot to do. So we need to move a lot faster in what we're doing. And of course, that's a too much strain on you as well as those around you who would then say, well, okay, I'm moving as fast as I can. What more does she want? I used to, I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie Devil Wears Prada. My famous part out of that movie was when she say, that's all. And I actually started saying that for a while, and somebody said, quit saying that. That's not very nice. And I was like, actually, I was trying to be funny, but no, it really wasn't. I'm impatient. I want it done. I want it done now. Come on, let's move it. And so when I'm at that point, that means that there's too much going on and I need to pull back and reflect a little bit. And because it may not need to be moving that fast. So thank you all for your perspective on this unbalance. And hopefully our audience can connect with one or two of us in regards to when you reach a point, and you know where you reach that point, back up, right? Back up, because you need to pull out and just for a second, reflect on what's going on, because we don't want harm to come to you. We don't want you to just be so overwhelmed that at some point you cannot reconnect yourself. And there is a point where, I don't care if you're a strong Black woman or whoever you are, you will reach a point sometime where you can't get it back. And I've seen that happen. And of course, then then you're at this point where you need serious mental guidance in a very strong way, even to a point where you need to be put into a hospital or something like that to help you to bring things back together. So nobody needs to get that far away from the center, and the center is you. Don't get that far away from your center. All right, I'm going to move on to the next question, but before I do, each of the panelists was asked to look at a chart, and this chart was a self-reflection, self-care chart. It had several areas to it. And I'm going to ask our TI person to put that chart up on the screen just for a second so everybody can see it. And we are going to reflect on this chart. We've already had a chance to take a look at it. There you go. Can you make it a little bit bigger? Or is that as far as we can go? And while I'm going to give everybody just a second to look at this chart, but let me introduce the chart by saying, as we look at this self-care wheel and we look at the balance of it, I think that's about as far as we can go, because then it'll start cutting off. Thank you so much. You can see that there's a physical part, there's a psychological part, emotional part, spiritual part, personal part, and professional part. These components are equally balanced. And the idea is that if you're looking at this chart and you're looking at this balance, what do you do in each of these areas in order to reach your balance? And keep in mind that everybody's balance is different. No two people will have the same balance, of course. So I'm going to stop talking just for a second and give us about 60 seconds. That's going to seem like a long time in presentation time, but I'm going to give you 60 seconds to read through the wheel, starting now. Okay, we got about 15 seconds left. All right, so that was about 60 seconds to kind of just get a feel for this chart. Now, again, the idea that the chart has these different components to it, 2, 4, 6 pieces. And as we look at this self-care, each piece needs to have some love from you in order for you to self-care yourself. And so my question is, what do you do in each of these areas in order for you to have this balance? And if you say, I'm not addressing all of those yet, that's fine. Tell us the ones that you are doing. And because then that gives you a goal on what you need to address in the future. I'm going to start with Jonafa. I'm going to start with you because I know you've already looked at this chart.
Right. Wow. This chart is actually really helpful because, like Claudia was saying earlier, we're giving a name to things that we've already done. So for me, the physical part, one of the things I do almost every night is I take a bubble bath. That's kind of like the cap to the end of my day. If I take a shower, it's usually because I have to get out of the house in a hurry. So I love bubble baths. I do regular care. I try to eat healthy. I'm mainly plant-based is my diet. Let's see, psychological. I have gone to therapy. I do aromatherapy. I like listening to music, reading books. Emotional. I I speak those things that are not as though they were over myself. I speak words of life and encouragement over myself. I do like taking walks in nature, you know, the spiritual aspects, of course. You know, I meditate over the scriptures, I pray. Um, Personal, I get coffee with a friend. One of the things that I like to do, or my sister and I do, she's actually on the Zoom today, is that we talk to each other throughout the day on Marco Polo. You know, it's kind of our ritual. We do that frequently. Um, and let's see, you know, just on the professional level, you know, just trying to expand, you know, what is the next step that I want to do? You know, what are my goals professionally? Where am I headed? You know, and just creating new goals and new tasks for myself, things of that nature. So it's, you know, for the sake of time, you know, there's so many other things on there that, like I said, I appreciate the wheel because I can see, you know, different ways and things that I've already done and learn more things, but there's much more on here, but I'll yield the floor to somebody else.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Claudia, tell us about your perspective of this wheel.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, just like Pastor Jonafa was just saying, I have engaged in many of these different types of self-care. But from a psychological standpoint, I definitely try to stay engaged with different things around me, trying to give, when I'm saying psychological, I'm thinking about benefit of the doubt. Because that's helpful for me. A lot of times I'm out in traffic and I'll get cut off. I don't care where I'm going. I could just be going to the little HEB close by me. Something's going to happen in traffic. And it used to really upset me, get me all discombobulated, as my husband says. And I would be off on a frenzy. But when I learned to do, just basically give people the benefit of the doubt, maybe, you know, something's going on with them that I don't understand or I don't know about, you know, and that just kind of helped me psychologically just be able to show grace, you know. But definitely psychologically for myself is giving myself the benefit of the doubt as well, because, you know, I'm hard on myself when I make a mistake. I'm hard on myself when I do something that I seem like I knew better than to do that, but I did it anyway, kind of unwittingly or just going on autopilot. And then I'll kind of get hard on myself. And then I'll say, well, you know what, let me just calm down. I am human, you know, and to err is human, right? So that has been helpful. Physically, I love to walk and I love to dance. I haven't been doing either lately, but I can always tell when I need that, because I love to get outside, get outdoors and go for a walk. Professionally, this is probably where I do most of my self-care, just because I love working. I love to feel productive. And if I can do 5 things, I have a list. I keep a planner too, by the way. This is another part of my self-care. It looks like this. These little happy planners. I don't know if y'all can see it, but that's something that I love to do. Making sure that all my appointments are in alignment, scheduling meetings, scheduling coffee dates, like Pastor said, just different things like that, but making sure that I'm on target or I'm tracking with whatever project that I'm working on. Personally, getting my nails done, you know, talking with a friend. I love calling my sister and just shooting the breeze with her, finding out what's going on with her children. Definitely spiritually, I'm a Bible reader. You know, like if I'm in the Word, I feel good. I can hear one scripture and feel refreshed. So I'm more about the Bible than actually going into a church. But that really helps me. It grounds me. It gives me a starting place. And then lastly, is just speaking to the emotional part. For my whole life, I've been kind of rigid around emotional stuff. I rarely cried or anything like that. But once I've gotten older, I don't know if I made that sentence correct, but but when I got older, I was able to kind of tap into that. I shared some of that at our last discussion last month, where I was able to just tap into my emotions on a deeper level. It really helped me because it helped me to grow stronger in my relationships with my husband, my kids, my friendships, and those different things, although I'm still very introverted. But yeah, so I've been able to kind of tap into self-care on all those levels, some more than others.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for the
Mhm.
All right, Queverra, I'm gonna go with you next. And the reason why Sandra, I was gonna do you, but I'm waiting because I know you just had a chance to see this wheel, so I'm giving you a little bit more time.
I think for me, I'll start with the psychological. I think it's so important to have like daily affirmations, and I found these affirmation cards that when you can't think, because sometimes you can't even think of an affirmation to tell yourself. So I have these little cards that kind of help me out a little bit. I I stay in tune with my therapist spiritually. I haven't physically gone in a church, but I church hop online virtually. And so I just, I pick a church a week that, oh, okay, I'm gonna be a member this week. And then I go. But my spiritual life and my psychological kind of go hand in hand. And so they strengthen each other, along with the physical care. I am a girly girl, so I love everything from massages to facials to anything that they can do. I done probably did it because it just makes my life happy. That's my happy place. And so that's what I do physically. Professionally, I am being open. Like I go into the mindset where there's not a lid on me professionally, and it helps me kind of think about what's possible. So I always try to maintain the possible thought of what's next in my professional life. So I've been everything from a DJ to help run universities, and now I'm helping run a nonprofit. So I don't place a lid on myself, and that helps me even stay in tune with my spiritual life and my psych life as well, because I kind of go with as I'm growing, because as we grow we evolve, so there's different needs. So that's how I stay balanced.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, Miss Joni, your turn. Tell us about this wheel and your connection.
Wow. So I first want to start with the psychological, simply because I'm a therapist and I am not ashamed to say that I go to therapy as well. It has kept me sane, because I have a lot coming at me as far as what I'm listening to. So I have to make sure that I'm not putting that off into my clients. So it's very important for me to be balanced in that way of the psychological part. It's so important for me. The other thing is having self-compassion is something that I did not have. I was very, very hard on myself, very critical on myself. And it showed up in the physical part for me, such as being sick, quite a bit. And so I've learned to kind of let go and to have compassion that if I didn't finish something, it's okay, and not be so hard that I have to stay and sit and do something until it's completed. That I make mistakes, and acknowledging that has been important for me as well. But self-compassion is something that I have to also deal with my clients, because if they've had trauma, a lot of times they don't have self-compassion. They inwardly have all these emotions. And so instead of saying, well, it was that person that did this to me, no, they say, I shouldn't have been there, if you get what I'm saying. So self-compassion is really important. The other thing is physical for me, making sure, because of my age, is making sure that I keep my doctor's appointments, do the things that I need to do. And then eating healthy has been something that I've also done. The other thing is I use aromatherapy. I use that every day. The first thing I do when I get up in the morning is I put on my diffusers and have aroma all through my house, simply because I am dealing with a lot of high stress from clients. And so it centers me and it relaxes me. And I always have some that I rub on my hands and things like that, but it really does center me to have that. Affirmations is very important to me. The other thing is that personally, meeting goals that I have wanted to do so long. One of the things that I've wanted to do for years is to go to West Africa. And I'm going to Ghana in July. And that has been a personal journey for me, simply because I'm a historian. I have 2 degrees in history, and one of them is in African history. But I also talk about intergenerational trauma. And that trauma has followed us, as we know, through where we are now. And so going back to the place where our trauma started is going to be, I know it's going to be very emotional for me, but I also intend on doing some writing about that, because I will be going to the University of Ghana and to talk to some scholars there. The other thing, professionally, is very important for me to feel like I am at a place where people are wanting me to be there. I've been in places and spaces where, I'm a hard worker and then not be appreciated. So in this stint of my journey, it is very important for me to be at a place where I'm wanted and they will hear me and understand that I have something to offer. And so I have made a lot of changes in the last year or so by retiring, and not really knowing what I was going to do for income. And God just kind of like, here it is. It seems like when I retired, everything just kind of worked itself in where I need to be. And so it's very important for me to meet my short-term goals and my long-term goals, to, even though at my age, to keep moving forward and not to be stagnant. Music is very important to me, but I also like to do jewelry. I create jewelry. So when I'm in my creative mode and really have one to relax, my daughter says it's not relaxing to her when I was trying to show her, but it's relaxing to me. And so I love to create jewelry. That's another thing. And the other thing is taking trips. And of course, I haven't been able to do this lately, taking trips with my daughters. We will have a mother-daughter trip. The last one we took was about 2 years ago. We went to New Orleans together. And so to keep that connection with my daughters, although they're in their 40s, I think it's essential for me to have that connection with them as well. Church is very important to me, although I've been doing it online as well. So I think that's all I had that I wanted to mention. Yeah.
Well, thank you. All right, Miss Sandra, tell us this wheel, your connection.
Well, I appreciate all the suggestions. It's made me kind of curious about some of the others that people have pursued. But one I was going to talk about is, of course, all the physical stuff, getting proper sleep, making myself, actually, we just got this dog about 2 months ago. And initially we're trying to go to bed early so the dog will get good sleep. So it's like all of a sudden we're like sleeping better and longer because we are taking into account setting up a ritual for the dog. So I think it's been really kind of curious to me about watching the dog and its rituals, of taking care of itself. And so much to learn there. And also the walking, the dog is, I'm walking every day, a mile or two, and just taking the dog out and playing with the dog and stuff. So that's kind of the physical part. The psychological part, the performing arts, I've just sorely missed this last year. But, for a while, I was giving myself the treat of getting to watch Alvin Ailey was releasing all these ballets for free, and just different dance companies. So that was kind of a reminder that that's a resource, and they were opening their archives. And I'm in a sport group. I journal. I've journaled for 30 years, almost every day. And I feel like I'm getting away from that a little bit in the last couple of months, just because I just got this new ritual in the morning of going with having this dog time. So it's kind of throwing out some of the things that I'm having to kind of figure out how to put those back in. I'm looking at some notes here. The emotional part, I feel like, this year has been such an emotional year in terms of all the racial unrest and in our community, not particularly, but this smaller town atmosphere. I've been feeling like there's some social justice stuff that I've been acting out on and trying to engage people with, and using my gift of, trying to bring people together and connect, as well as to create understanding. Put together this Voices at the Table project. But another thing I thought about when I heard Queverra talking was about the flowers. It's like giving myself flowers. Like I will go out and get somebody else some flowers, but like, well, I give them to myself. So sometimes it's just about thinking about what would I do for somebody else that I can do for myself. And that's one thing. And then I'd say the spiritual part is just having a spiritual community. I have a group of ladies here in Wimberley, these Methodist ladies who have been just bread and butter to me in terms of like just sharing emotionally, as well as kind of changing some theology, introducing me to new things, and having a place to kind of also hold a little bit of my, I don't know. I mean, they're just being able to deal with me as a Black woman, and when I'm angry, I feel safe to be angry with these ladies. They're all older than I am, and they're just like honored that I guess that I would share that with them, because it's not something that I can feel like I can really share with, just anybody. So I've gotten a trusting place with this group, and I think that's the community that I feel with them to feel safe enough to do that. And of course, I do yoga, and I pray, and I write devotionals every now and then. Just for me or my friends or my family, I send out something that I've written. And so it's that opportunity to be creative with words and foster relationships with dance and poetry. I paint. You put on music, you make a meal. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's like, that's self-care. You just don't even realize it. I think the last thing I would say is that professionally, I have told stories as a choreographer, as a dancer. And now I feel like with this Voices at the Table project I've been doing, of these community kind of forums about racial and social injustice, I've basically just been soliciting stories from people, because I think it's so powerful. And so I think those are the ways that I allow myself to be creative and nurture myself, is by telling some of my stories, but also engaging others to tell theirs. That's very energizing to me as well.
Okay.
So,
All right. Thank you. I'm hoping that our audience is taking a look at this wheel, and as you're reading it, you're putting tally marks in each of those areas to ways of how you are balancing your self-care. As I heard Queverra talking, one of the things I thought of was that I'm a spa junkie. I will go to a spa in a hot minute. And since we have not been able to travel, I had not been to one in a while, let me tell you, because I go for the 2-3 day package that allows you to do everything that you can do and more, and be able to sleep in between sessions. So that's my big thing. I'm an artist. I do paint. And if you happen to have seen my Facebook page, you notice that background that I have on my Facebook page, I just recently changed all my pieces of art, because I'm actually getting ready to do an art show pretty soon. I'm waiting to hear when the time will come. I'm not going to continue to go on because my colleagues have had the opportunity, but I was able to put tally marks in each of these areas. And I challenge you to, as you put in the tally marks into each of these areas, which area has the least amount of tally marks? That's the one you want to work on, right? What more can you do to help you? I'll leave you with this. Is day before yesterday. I went to the jewelry store and bought myself a new ring. It was a cute little 1 carat, I'm in the diamond ring that you can wear every day. And I always tell friends, if I buy diamonds and give them to friends and say, here's just a pair of earrings we went to the grocery store. And they're like, okay. But that's my self-love, is to be able to buy myself something nice. So what is it on this wheel that you see that you don't have enough tally marks in, that you need to work on in order to improve you, for the most part? And so we have 6 areas. And if your tally marks are not even in each of those areas, and you have a little something that you need to work on for you, this is about you. This is how you are going to balance your life. Hopefully everyone will get to a point. I know that I am now, that the most important person right now is me. I have grown children. Mother's being taken care of, and the job is not a job anymore. I'm retired. I do diva things now. I call them diva hours. I only work around my time. It's diva time. And I will say up front, when I'm doing a contract, now I have diva hours. And I'll explain what that is, because I'm not a 9 to 5 person no more. And I'm gonna do real good if I'm up by 10 in the morning on some days, just because it's my time now. So you have to think along those lines. You're not being selfish, especially if you're the person who does for everybody. You're not being selfish when you take just a little bit of time for yourself. Now, we're going to move to another little topic, but not too far astray from what we've been doing, and that is the Black Sister Circle, how important it is. And I'm going to frame this, and oh, thank you for taking that down. I will put my email address on chat in just a second. And if anybody wants in the audience who wants that chart, I can send it to you by way of email. If you'd like to, you say, oh, I didn't get to write everything down, we can send it to you, no big deal. So I'm going to use the term Black Sister Circle and how important it is. But I'm also going to say a sister circle, because Sandra just told us about a circle that she's involved in that has given her a lot of support. And it may not necessarily have been Black women. But for right now, as we said, hello, cutie pie. For right now, as we are having this discussion, this Black Sister Circle, how important is it? And maybe the question I'm asking is, this event that we're having right now, how important is it in regards to our self-care? It was mentioned a little earlier that this was kind of a self-care, being able to come online and be able to be involved in this particular session. Though we're not hearing from the audience, we only have a certain number of people of the panel that we're listening to. But we hope that you are making connections for the most part to things that we're saying. So panelists, think about this idea. Is a Black Sister Circle important? And if you want to leave out the word and say, is a sister circle important? And I don't necessarily mean your siblings, but a group of women that you can come in contact with and have some interaction with regularly, so that you can, I believe it was Sandra who said it best. So you're able to, it's a safe place. How about that? It's a safe place for you to be able to have a discussion or have a cry or whatever it is that you need to have. How important is that? Now, which of my panelists would like to go first on this particular question about this sister circle? All right, I'm going with Claudia. I can just call your name if y'all not speaking up.
That's right. I'm just subliminally trying to tell you that. Just call somebody. Just call. And you me. Okay. But no, I 100%, 110% believe it's important to have that sister circle. And for me, I'm gonna say Black women, just because I think that Black women can relate to my story the best. And I'm gonna share a little story. I'm gonna leave out names, but I have a really good friend, older lady. I love to connect with older women because I love the wisdom that they're able to impart upon me. I love to learn. I love to just soak it in. I love to hear about old stuff that happened back in the day. You know, I just love it. But this particular friend, I love talking with her. I love spending time with her. But her story is so different from mine. So different. She was afforded so many more privileges than I could ever even imagine. And she shares with me her background and different things like that, things that just could have never happened in my family, generation behind generation behind generation. It just was never going to happen. And they're in a place in their lives that I just cannot understand that. I relate to struggle. I relate to hardship. I relate to pain. And I relate to triumph over that pain and struggle. Okay. So I find my peace. I find sisterhood in that. When women share with me a relatable story of pain and struggle, but then they overcame it, I connect with them almost instantly. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure she has had pain and struggle. It's just not the same kind that I can relate to. So I just tend to find myself seeking out women that can relate to me and can relate to my pain and my struggle. And when I find that, and we can sit and we can talk about that, and then we can laugh about it. You know, it wasn't funny back then, you know, in it, but it's funny now, you know, like them whoopings we used to get back in the day. You know, you started sharing, you know, war stories. Yeah. Sharing war stories and showing, you know, battle scars, and then you can laugh about it. Now it's like, okay, you get me. You understand what I've been through. So, and I love to be able to laugh and joke and have a good time with a bunch of ladies. So I think it's super important. It definitely makes me feel a lot better about everything that I went through.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, let's see. Let's do Jonafa. You're next. Tell us about that circle.
Oh wow, my circle is everything. You know, I would have to agree with everything that Claudia said. Is you know, those shared experiences, and it makes me think about, you know, the process of coming to voice and collective consciousness, so that there's a collective struggle. There's also a collective consciousness that you can come to, because when you have a shared experience and a shared pain and a shared narrative, then we can find ways to help each other overcome those experiences. So, you know, I have a group of people that whenever anything is going on in my life, whenever I'm seeking new direction, I always call those people, I'll text those people and say, hey, you know, I need you to pray, you know, or hey, you know, can we talk for a moment? Can I share something with you? So those circles are so important, and the circles are, I don't even know if I'm using the word right. Vanessa can probably tell me, but the circles are concentric. In other words, that they connect at some point and they overlap, you know, so
Yeah,
it's
kind
like
of like a Venn diagram.
yes,
Venn
there you
diagram.
go. So there's more than one circle, you know, and so that's the beauty of having multiple connections, that there's more than one circle, so that if I can't have a shared experience and have a conversation with this group, then there's somebody that overlaps, and I can have a conversation and share with this group. I can go and get coffee with these people over here, and over here I can get prayer, and over here this group of people, they like to go walk. I know I can't ask my friends over here to go walk and they're not doing it, you know. So it's like, it's important to have that Venn diagram of friendships and sister circles and connections, you know. It's a beautiful thing. It kind of makes me think about the movie, I don't know how people feel about this particular movie. Some people say it wasn't Oprah's best, but it was the movie Beloved. And at the end of the movie, she had this thing in her house that she couldn't get out by herself. But them sisters, the mothers came up in the yard and they began to wail and moan. I'm like, you should have had them come up in the yard long time ago. This thing living in your house would have been gone, girl. Them mothers got that spirit up out of there, you know. So I keep a group of folks that know how to come up in my yard. And I'm like, I don't wait until we get to this point. And I'm like, I need y'all to come, and I need y'all to come right now. So, but yeah, that was to me just a great example of how, like Claudia said, this historical, ancestral, tradition that we have where we can call on one another, like the scripture says, call for the wailing women, you know.
Mm.
So, we need to be able to have that connection. So that it's everything to me. I call on that circle and those circles daily.
All right, great analogy, especially like the one, what the movie Beloved, because there was a great piece in there that just seemed like, how come you didn't do that at the beginning? That kind of thing. Who knew? Who knew? All right, yeah, great point, great point. All right, another perspective. Let's see, Queverra, give us another perspective.
I think it's a part of our lifeline. Like, it is the foundation of support. I remember adjusting to moving to England. I was so isolated because I had no friends. So I went from having all these people I knew here and then going into another country. I truly understood the significance and the importance of support and that sisterhood. And so I met some British sisters and we had tea. And so I learned how to have tea and the importance and significance of tea. And I built a different sisterhood in England.
Mhm.
And that is what allowed me to adjust. And so now I have a family, I have an international family in England. I have a sisterhood in New Zealand. I got a sisterhood in all the different places I've been able to go. And I think it's important to our own development. When you even look at this circle, the cycle, the different pieces of it, physically, we as women, touch is important. Psychologically, we talk a lot. I talk a whole lot, and I'm emotional. So sometimes my emotionals is over here and it's over there. And then when you think about your professional life, we as women, we question ourselves a whole lot. So a lot of times I'm sitting like, well, should I do this? Did I make the right choice? Did I do this? But that sisterhood is important. And even me listening to all of you, these past few months, listening to you, amazing women on this panel, I'm talking to those present and those that are not. You are amazing. Your journey is amazing. And even though I haven't met you face to face, I consider you a part of my sister circle because I'm like, I know her. I've stalked all of you online anyway. And I just think it's so amazing that you can bring one platform and all these different voices and the lessons that I get to learn. So yes, to answer your question, a sisterhood circle is important because it pours into you unintentionally.
Mm.
And the unintentional pours, that makes us grow into where we're supposed to be because we're connecting with each other. So I love it.
All right, thank you, thank you. Let's see, let's go with Sandra.
Yeah, I mean, I would just be lost without the sisters in my life. I have a flesh and blood sister who I'm not as close to as some of the women that I've gotten to know in my life. And I think a lot of them that came through, church and Bible studies and stuff, me growing as a Christian, a young Christian in my 20s, and those were kind of really tight circles. And then I got into kind of recovery groups, and it was interesting. I might have mentioned this before, but I was in a 12-step group, and one of the Black women in it came up to me and said, "Ooh, we've got our own." And we called ourselves the Home Girls. And that was just a bomb. We would meet once a week and we would, talk about any number of things. And that just kind of helped me get my identity. Like, where all my siblings went off to college and they got to be around more Black people than we got to be around in Omaha, Nebraska. And I go into the ballet world, you know, and everybody's white, and I'm trying to be the representative of the race, you know. And so, you know, I had nobody to kind of reflect back to me, you know, that my experience as a Black woman is just as valid, and I had touchstones. And so that group was incredibly important to me. And then I got into a Black women's book club, and that was just, those women are still just, you know, and this is all in Houston. And so then I moved here, you know, these Methodist ladies kind of gathered around me like, ooh, we want to get to know her. Like, yeah. And I get to show you who I am, and you don't know anything about me. So I got to feel it, totally feel like I'm standing here as Black. And every time I introduce myself to anybody in this little white town, I've had to say, I'm a Black, you know, like I have to identify myself, because I just don't feel like they're going to know that. And I might hear something I don't want to hear. But at the same time, in all of this time of racial unrest, and people are looking to me to be the strong Black woman and to help them out of their racism, or to validate that they're okay, you know, and that they're doing their part because they know me. Isn't, you know, it's been challenging. You know, I've had to challenge them, and I have to step back and say no. But I feel like they do kind of wait on what I'm going to say about stuff. And so in a sense, it feels like, I don't know, I wouldn't be here without all the sisters in my life. And I do feel like every time I would go back to Houston and I'd stay with this Black woman that just became a really dear friend of mine. It's also my financial counselor. She and I mean, I could just pick back up, I could call her and say, I just need to have a moment. You know what? I just need to like have a cocktail, or have a cup of tea, or just have a Zoom. I got to see you. We got to talk about what's going on in the world right now, and where we just kind of like can't do this anymore. You know, I got to just talk to another Black woman. So I understand that. And I feel that way with Jonafa. And every time I talk to you, I feel like, oh, I need to be talking to you more. I didn't realize all this stuff I've been holding on to talk to somebody about, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just lovely getting together with. So I feel like this, I'm very thankful to have been introduced to all of you ladies too, as well, you know, because, you know, Black people are few and far between in Hays County, especially in Wimberley. So I'm grateful to have found some peeps.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate those remarks. Miss Joni?
Okay, so I believe in groups. When I was at Texas State University and I worked in student diversity and inclusion, I was known as the person that always would put in groups together, just as such as I've done this time. One of the groups, I don't even want to call it a group because it's so huge now, is Black Women United. I founded that group at Texas State University because there was a lack of support for Black women coming together to share their stories. Last time I heard, it's about 300 young ladies coming together. There was another group that I started at Texas State. It was for newly employed Black women at Texas State, and they were coming from all over the United States, and they were trying to, you know, most of the time they're the only Black person in their
Department.
Yeah, their department. Yeah, and so I started that group, which is still going on, for them to come together to have solidarity. I firmly believe in groups because this is something that has been passed on to us from our ancestors. I firmly believe that. There was no way that we could have gone through the struggles that we've gone through without each other, and especially women as well. So right now, next week, I'll start a group at HCWC. It's going to be Women of Color support group that's coming together. This is something that I firmly believe in because this is how we learned how to collectively come together and help each other. That is so important to me. And then it's about our cultural history, you know, coming together and then helping each other with survival strategies, right? I've learned so much from everyone who has been in this group. But I just was known as the person that puts people together. And I don't know where that came from, but I just know that a lot of people have reached out to me and said, hey, this is happening. What can I do? Especially at Texas State. I started a Women of Color group as far as a Women of Color retreat. I started a Women of Color forum because it's collectively coming together, understanding that we have a lot in common and a lot that we can help with each other. So for me, it is so important in my own personal life to have women I can talk to. It's so hard with COVID, but I do try to keep up with people as much as possible. I sometimes, because of my age, I have a lot of younger people that reach out to me more than anything. I don't know why, but people do that to me. And I think it's because, I have been through quite a bit and they use me as a source of encouragement as well. But I also have people I reach out to as well. Somebody says I'm a connector. Yes, I am a connector. But so this was, to me, was like, even putting this together was something that I wanted women from all walks of life to come together, and also just to understand that even though we have various different backgrounds, but there's some commonality with all of us,
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they're very essential for us to survive.
I wanted to mention that I actually had a conversation with a citizen in Hays County who saw me at a really informal event and said, hey, I saw you on that panel and I wanted to talk to you for a few minutes. And I said, well, let's go grab some tea and go sit down and have a conversation. And we had a great conversation. And she felt that she could ask me some very personal questions from the perspective of a Black woman, an African American woman. She said, I have some questions I want to ask, and I'm wondering if you would, if I could share them with you. And I was like, you can ask me anything you want. I've always been like that. I don't care what the topic is. If I know the answer, I'm going to tell you. And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to say, let me go find out, and we're going to find out together. And I have no problem in sharing. That's just kind of person I am. Anyway, we had a very good conversation and have continued to have conversations by email or text since then. And this was after the first event that we had back in January. So I wanted to just bring that up, that you all have made some connections too because of this panel. So the idea of this circle is something that's needed. And when I started off having this conversation, I said the Black Sister Circle. I was just a little hesitant in saying that, not because I have an issue with the Black Sister Circle, but I think it was Jonafa who put it best. You have this Venn diagram of circles. And so there were my sisters in the engineering field, right? That was a circle. We were all experiencing something as a female in a male dominated area. And then of course there was my college sisters. That there were different circles. But I think the one that I wanted to point out the most is I had a opportunity to do an international scientific study on a research vessel. And in between getting off and on that vessel, what I found solace in was finding out where my local Delta Sigma Theta chapter was and going to a chapter meeting. It was like my Black girl fix. So I was able to go to a meeting and just basically say, hey, I'm only here for the weekend, but I found out you guys were having a meeting on the website and they said, come on in, Sarah. And, we had a great conversation. Then I was off to the next port, that kind of thing. So that sufficed me for that period of time where I was doing that kind of work. So we have these different circles and they may cross over as a Venn diagram, as we mentioned earlier, or they may just be separate circles. And I think Jonafa said, this circle will do this and this circle will do that. This circle will not do that, so don't go to them. asking them to go walk with you on Monday morning because they're not having that. But then you got your margarita circle, right? Because that group doesn't drink. So it just varies from place to place. But if you don't have a circle, my sisters, get one. All right, get one. The Tyler Perry did a movie called The Single Moms Club. Y'all remember that? And it was this group of women who all had children. They all had some kind of issues going on with a man in their life or didn't have one. And they joined together as a way of trying to help each other, and it worked real well. And I remember seeing that movie, and I called my girlfriend, Regina, who 20 years ago, we had a singles moms club, and we were all trying to get our masters at the time. And so we had it set up so that somebody was not having class on a specific night and they had all the kids. And then everybody else was in class. And so you had one night when you had the kids and you had one night where you didn't have kids. And it was like just the coolest thing. And so when Tyler Perry movie came out, I said we should have got a royalty from that because we had done that 20 years ago. I did want to mention that, and I hope I'm saying your name right. It's Breka. Am I saying that right, Pastor Jennifer? B-R-E-C?
It's Brecca.
Brecca, thank you. Brecca has given us a lot of comments in chat, not so much as to ask a question, but to share her perspective on some of the questions that we have been talking about. And so if you click on your chat, you can read some of the things that she's saying in regards to when we talked about the circle, when we talked about how to use self-care, things that you do, those sort of things. So I just wanted to give her a shout out for actually being involved in the conversation silently. So read those things that she's saying, and you can see that you know, she's in a great discussion with us. She's just not speaking for the most part. I wanted to mention that. Brecca. Did I say it right this time? Brecca? Am I right, Brecca? Okay, good. And you had that cutie pie on just a second ago. I saw that too. All right. Now, the next thing that I want to do is the term strong Black woman. Let's talk about that for a minute, because Miss Jonnie found an interesting clip from Taraji P. Henson that talks about the strong Black woman. And if we could get Kiara to put that clip on for us for just a second. I want everybody to see it. It's less than 2 minutes. It may even be less than a minute. And then we're gonna come back and have a conversation about this idea of this parentheses, quotation marks, strong Black woman, quotation marks.
Don't call her strong. What was once seen as an empowering phrase can often be a harmful moniker for Black women. And Taraji P. Henson is making sure that the masses understand the issue at large.
You know, we can handle it. Oh, we're tough.
Henson has been called strong in addition to many other attributes, seemingly as a compliment. However, in a conversation during an Essence Wellness House segment, the actress opened up about how damaging the strong Black woman narrative can really be.
It came as a thing to empower us, right? So it became I'm a strong Black woman, right? To empower us. But then as years go on, we've been ignored because of that very statement. Well, you know, it dehumanizes us. It dehumanizes our pain. It belittles our tears. It belittles, like I said, our pain. We're supposed to be able to watch our brothers and sons and fathers get murdered in the street, but we can take it because we're strong, right? We can deal with it. We can handle it. And that's just not true.
Henson also takes issue with another popular phrase.
I have issues with titles like that and like Black Girl Magic, because we're not fairies. You know what I mean? We don't magically rebound from pain. We hurt and suffer just like others. And I just always felt some kind of way about those titles.
Issues aside, Taraji has another take on those titles that could actually be helpful.
We think strength is in, you know, vibrato or but strength is in being vulnerable. And that's what I want my people to understand.
Let's hope everyone can understand this and act accordingly moving forward. Here's to vulnerable Black women everywhere. For HipHollywood.com, I'm Vanessa Barnett.
All right, Vanessa. Thank you so much, Kiara. I wanted to talk about that just a little bit, what she said. And I'm going to start this one off. I'm always follow at the end, but I want to start this one off because there were two things that I immediately made contact with. The idea of the strong Black women. You know, the first time I heard that phrase, being an historian, someone who has a degree in history, specifically slavery and the Civil War, my impression of the strong Black woman was the Black mother standing there on the auction block and her child being pulled away from her to being sold to go someplace else. She's strong, she can take it, she's have another one. That was my first impression. So I never quite connected to that phrase for the most part. And then the other one was about the Black girl magic. I disliked that one from the very beginning. For the longest time, y'all, I swear, I thought I was the only one. So I kept my mouth shut. You know, don't be going against the system. And most time I will, but I just left it alone because we were talking about us, right? But I had issues with that because this idea of Black girl magic and it all of a sudden just appears and comes to you. Don't nothing appear and come to nobody. Where I got and where each of you got, you worked very, very hard to get there. And it was no picnic. Now, maybe we make it look easy. It wasn't. And I think ultimately that may be the problem that we may set forth from our younger generation of coming through, is that what we do and what they see us do seems so easy. They can get it in a year, whereas it took us 25 years, right? So there's no magic involved. It was a lot of hard work for the most part. So I would like for some of you to give me your perspective. You've heard mine, and it's my perspective. Give me your perspective of what you just heard Taraji P. Henson say. And I'm going to start first with Miss Jonah.
I knew I was going to be, I just knew it.
You know what? So you never know with me. You don't know who I'm going to call. I'm looking at the screen.
I just had that feeling. I personally didn't like the Black girl magic myself. I just have to be honest with you. And I do agree that it wasn't like I set out to be this thing, the strong Black woman. It was labeled, I was labeled that, you know, more than anything. When some people would hear what I've been through, the first thing, you're such a strong woman, you know, and not seeing the vulnerability or the breakdown, I should say, that was happening with me. So yeah, I do agree with everything that she has to say, because it can be dehumanizing to be said that you're a strong Black woman, because it takes away from the things that you've gone through. So yeah, I'm going to keep it at that right now.
Okay. I appreciate that. Let's see, Claudia, give us a perspective.
Well, I have to say I never liked that magic word. For me, it throws me off, period. I don't care where I hear it at. But with you know what? I was really impressed, honestly, with, I always say Taraji. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced or not, but I was impressed with what she was saying. And the reason being is because it is so much harder. You know, our lives, I feel like it's just hard. And I remember my mother saying that when I was knee-high to a cricket, you know, things are going to be harder for you. And it seems like she was, you know, laying the foundation for me to understand that this is how I'm going to have to go through life. But I wish that she had also been exposed to talks like this or things that Taraji was saying, because we are still human. We still hurt and we have pain, and it's okay to share that. I think that I've shared over these last few months about how hard it was for me to literally feel emotion. And I mean, any emotion, to really feel it. And when I was able to actually really feel it, it came like in this flood of feelings that really put me down for weeks. I think I shared about that. And I didn't know what was happening to me. I thought I was having some kind of a breakdown. I didn't know what was going on. But I think that if we start to help our young girls to understand that, you know what, there is a difference between being strong and being strong the way people perceive you to be strong, and being strong from a perspective of vulnerability. I think it was Brene Brown who wrote a lot about this aspect about vulnerability. I have a couple of her books, and when I was reading those, you know, it seemed great in theory, but I did not know how to put that in practice, you know? And I remember I was exposed to her books at work. I worked for a homeless shelter in San Antonio, and I would think that there I could express vulnerability based on these readings, right? The things I was learning. And I found that I really couldn't, because there was still an expectation, even though, even though there's all this research, you know how famous this woman is, she's been all over Oprah, and people still cannot understand that they still had an expectation of me to participate in a certain way, to put up with things in a certain way. And so I just love that somebody that has a platform such as Taraji got out and was able to say this, because I feel like she's been a cheerleader for us. I feel like it may help even more so than Brene Brown's, message, because obviously everybody didn't get the memo. But hopefully, this is an opportunity. And I think for each one of us, we all have our own platforms, right? Like for each one of us to just demonstrate that it is okay to be vulnerable and to demonstrate what that looks like. Because even for myself, like I said, reading the material, but then understand, well, what does that actually look like, in practical application? How am I to be vulnerable? What does it look like? Yeah, so that's all I'm gonna say about it, because I feel like I had the floor a long time. So, but thank you.
I appreciate that. You made me think of something before I go to one of our next panelists, and that is this. This is my scientific hat being put on here. There's two things that happens with humans. There is learned behavior and there's inherited traits. Okay. Learned behavior is your actions, your practices, the things that you do on an everyday basis. Inherited traits are the color of your eyes, the texture of your hair, how tall you are, how short you are. You don't have any control over those things. So anything outside of that is a learned behavior. And just like you can learn it, you can unlearn it. So a lot of times we will hear people say, oh, she's just like her mother. She's a tough cookie. All right. That was a learned behavior. You didn't inherit that. And so I want to be very, very clear on that, because when people say things to you like, even to the one where he plays basketball just like his dad, that's a learned behavior. That's not an inherited trait. Okay. And so to keep that in mind, we sometimes have to think about what we've seen our parent do, our grandmother, and we're talking about women, our mom, our aunts and whatnot. And we may have to challenge it. I don't mean being disrespectful, but I do mean we may have to challenge it and say, that's not what I want to do. And that is not a bad thing when you're thinking about your overall perspective. You may not want to get married and have 4 kids. You may not want to have any kids, but be married. There's all kind of perspective. Learned behaviors are choices. You'll pick it up, you'll see it, you may mimic it, or you may choose not to. And I think we need to sometimes step back and look at that, because we have a history over generations of being the person stepped on, and we have to speak up ourselves for the most part. I think Queverra said something about that earlier. And so we need to stop for a minute and reflect. Yeah, you want to be prepared to be able to handle whatever is out there, but sometimes you may have to say, give me a minute. I need to think about that. Because how do you want to handle it? bear forth out. You know, we get a lot of pressure from our parents, from our families, from our society as Black women on things we are supposed to do. That strong Black woman, that's one we're supposed to do. But you remember my interpretation of that? I see the woman who's having her baby pulled from her and sold to the other guy at the other plantation. She all right. She'll be all right. They all right. They do that. And I've seen enough movies to say that was my interpretation of it, which is why I wasn't very keen on it from the very beginning. But I'm glad to see that others were having the same kind of perspective, and not makes me think that I should have said something a little bit earlier. Hold on a minute, let's not use that phrase. Maybe that's quite not the right phrase to be able to use to describe this very hard work that this woman is doing, either to make her family comfortable, improve herself, or whatever the case may be. That's not a strong Black woman. That's a person who's working real hard for the most part. Okay, I'm gonna stop because I want somebody else to chime in for me. And let's let Pastor chime in for me.
I share the same sentiment as most everyone else, that I didn't like the Black girl magic. I had to unlearn that the strong Black woman was not a good thing, but the Black girl magic, that's more recent, you know, within the last, I don't know, I guess 10 years or so that it's become popularized.
Right.
And to me, part of the problem is that it is too closely in line with the magical Negro trope, where the magical Negro trope is a trope that's used in literature, movies, and other mediated forms, where Black people have supernatural, super spiritual powers, and they come in to undergird and aid white people on their journey through supernatural forms. So in the same way that the magical Negro trope has these special powers to help white people get to where they need to go in life and understand life and all of its mysteries, Black women kind of, you know, the Black girl magic, it's like, that's what we do. We just come in and we sprinkle a little of our magic. And somebody said, Sandra said, and I was just going to say that it diminishes the hard work, and it diminishes the process, you know, of what it takes to get to where you need to go. And it also gives the appearance that I have something that you can take from me that doesn't require anything of me but fairy dust and sprinkles, you know. But even when I sit down to counsel, when I sit down to pray, when I sit down to give advice, when I lend my hand, when I put my hands to work, that requires something of me. It's not magical. So when I give it away, it's taking something from me, and it's not magic, and it obscures the process. You know, and it reminds me of The Princess and the Frog, which I actually like that movie. And the major narrative is that I'm not a princess. Through hard work, I'm going to get this restaurant, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. But there's Black girl magic all throughout the movie. You know, there's magic all throughout the movie, and Disney, in true fashion, still has that as the major narrative. But they're, you know, with one hand, they're telling us, oh, Black people, we know you got to work hard. We're going to honor that legacy and da 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 da. But on the same time, we still want to talk about how things happen and it's magical. And, you know, I'm like, y'all still messed up with that. You know, as much as I appreciate the movie and certain things that y'all did get right, there's still some things that you just did not get. You could not resist even within our own narrative, so to speak, there's a magical Negro still somewhere waiting in the shadows to help you on your journey. You know, so I don't like that Black girl magic, because it's just another iteration of the magical Negro trope.
Like that bippity boppity boop. There it is, you know.
And there you go.
Cinderella, right? Yeah. Bippity boppity boop. Boop, there it is. Yeah, there you go. Okay, you're good. Go ahead, next.
Yeah. You know, I'm making that's even deep in itself, because when you think about all of the other movies and the bippity boppity boom and how things happen magically, I'm like, no, you didn't get this land or this palace or this chariot or these horses because it was magic. No, you stole it. You usurped it. You took it. You know, somebody else built it. So,
Yeah.
and so I digress. I'm done.
Yep. We get you. We get you though. We get you. Absolutely.
I
All right.
got to say one thing about
ahead.
this. When you're talking about hard work, the thing that I find very interesting is that I worked very hard to get the credentials of being a counselor, and how people want to shortchange you because they just look at the end results of you having this degree and being licensed. And I think that all of us can relate to that, where people will come around and say, oh, well, can you get it to me any cheaper? You know, I'm like, well, wait a minute. You know, you're not recognizing what I have done or credentials I have and how hard it takes to be there. Not that many of us in that profession.
Right.
And so that is something that I'm sure all of us can relate to, but I just had to say that.
Absolutely. All right, somebody else chime in without me having to call your name. That I actually like the idea of just chiming in. Go ahead, Sandra. Chime on in.
So I was just going to say this, all of this reminds me, I appreciate what the clip communicated. It reminds me of what I called the Misty effect. So in the ballet world, you know, with Misty Copeland, she comes along, she's the principal dancer and first principal dancer in ABT. And it's like, she's the first person to ever bake bread. And there were tons of people that came before her. And it also doesn't take in all this black magic, you know, black girl magic stuff was kind of applied to her. It's like, no, you don't realize this girl was like, she didn't start till she was 14. And I remember seeing, and then she pretty much emancipated herself from her parents and started living with the ballet teacher who gave her lessons every day for her to get to where she got in 4 years, which takes everybody else 14 years to get there. She, so I had, there was a little girl at my church. And, you know, back in the day when she was growing up, I was telling her grandmother, who was doing most of the raising there, I said, you know, that little one right there has some talent. You should put her in ballet school. Oh, she's not all interested in that. She's like, high school hits, all of a sudden she gets a dance teacher there who's telling her, oh, she could be just like Missy Copeland. And I'm like, now I've been trying to tell you, this doesn't just happen overnight. Like that girl did that every day. Like she was like Simone Biles. She's like been on a track. She's been on Olympic track. And that's how she got there in 4 years, just start when she was 14. Are you ready to really sink some serious time and money and effort into making this happen for yourself? Because it's not just gonna happen overnight. So that's when I started calling it the Misty effect, because it's just like, she can do it, I can too. I mean, in some ways it was very inspiring, and she continues to, you know, a lot of these ballet schools have started going into the boys and girls schools trying to find these students of color, which is great. I mean, that's her legacy, that in how she's, but she just had an incredible PR agent too, you know, like to get this out there as if there's nobody else. And so anyway, I just feel like, you know, it diminishes. She was, you know, she was a corps de ballet. She was in the, you know, she wasn't a principal overnight. I mean, she's in her 30s. It took her, you know, 15 years before she got that moniker. And that's how I felt too, you know, like, I got to be a soloist, and I was a soloist for 12 years. And I feel like, you know, I never got to be a principal, you know, and it came to the end of my career, and that was as far as it was going to go for me. Whereas, you know, Lauren Anderson and people in, you know, in Houston, we had a ton of Black dancers that coming through there, and they just recently talked about Black girl circles. Did a whole series on this thing called Breaking Boundaries. You go online with Houston Ballet, and they talk about the legacy of the Black dancers they've had in the company. And they started with the first 3 of them, which I was one. And so it started there, and then it was beautiful. And that was a circle at one point. We all got to all be on the same call in a Zoom room. And it was just like, wow, we could see all the ones that came after. And I was one of the ones that came before. But, you know, there was always a circle of that, you know, and it was just lovely to see it all in one place, and to let the world see it, and let Houston Ballet decide, let's open this up and let them really talk about what this has been like for them, and,
Mhm.
and not censor any of it. Anyway, that's much more than we said, but
I get you.
Misty
I
effect.
get you. Yeah,
I think strong, and also the other strong Black woman I think of is Harriet Tubman
yeah.
with that gun, honey, telling people, you are coming. You know? But, you know, she also had a sleeping sickness, you know,
Yeah.
and she was vulnerable in a lot of ways, you know, so
Right. Yeah.
multifaceted.
Yeah. When the Misty effect that you're talking about, it kind of reminds me, if you look at some of our little African American male perspective, they see the NBA player and think that, oh, I can do that too. Not knowing I have a nephew that's a professional basketball player, and his dad gave him a basketball when he was 2, and he spent 6 to 8 hours a day between the ages of 5 and 14 a day playing basketball. So yeah, he's a professional basketball player now. But there was a lot of time and energy that went into that, and that's not a thing that, yes, inspired to be that, but what's your backup plan? And you're not the only one. History can repeat itself. I know when I first heard about, and we're talking about Misty, I thought of 10 women who had long come before her, Judith Jameson, to name a few, who had did tremendous things in the world of ballet. I used to like to go to ballet a lot. And so anyway, as we digress a little bit, and we still wanted 2 more panelists to talk about your perspective as we try to round this off on Taraji P. Henson's comments. And who have I not heard from yet? Jump in. Who have I not heard from? Go ahead.
I'll see something real quick. It reminds me of when I was a little girl and my mom would try to teach me about foundation wear, like the foundation under your clothes and what it looked like. And as I've gotten older and got it addicted to Amazon, ordering foundation wear off Amazon. And when I get it and I look at it and I thought it was really my size, but it barely fit over my leg. And I was like, this isn't gonna work. And that's the concept I think about when I think about Black girl magic or the myth of the strong Black woman. It just doesn't fit right. And so that's when I have to go back in and redetermine what I need as foundation wear for me. So I got to go get the Spanx of my mind and not use the shape where that comes from Amazon, because it just doesn't fit. And I think us recognizing what fits us and reshaping our own foundations from what we were taught or what we known. And so I'm just embracing this new, I'm going to get my own foundation, my own shapewear that's going to fit me and where I'm going and who I am. And I don't have to fit in what society says I have to fit in.
Right. Good point. Very good point. Who of our team have I not heard from yet? Did I hear from everybody in this perspective? Okay, I'm looking at okay, I was looking in our chat to see if we had any questions. We don't. We just have a comment or 2. Let's see. Well, what's the strong Black woman looks like will change with time. Yes, good point. I agree with Dr. Q. What fits will change over time. Good point also. And again, I think I bring back up this idea of learned behaviors and inherited traits. It's something for you to think about. Anything that you do, any action you have, any practice, that is something you learned, which means you can unlearn it or you could change it to suit you. You don't necessarily have to follow that particular path, and it doesn't make you a bad person, right? If you're trying to do good, and you will find your way to do good, and it may be not the way that your mom did it, your grandmother did it, your aunties did it, etc. They were all great teachers, but you don't want to be a teacher. You don't have to. There's something else in your plan, and you need to figure out what it is that you're good at overall, which is something I've always told my 2 girls. They went to the science field like I did, but I didn't pressure them into going that way, because at one point, one of them was going to be a classical violinist, and I supported whatever it was that she wanted to do. And so I just think that's something for us to think about overall. Well, we are coming, wow, we are at like 7 o'clock almost. And I'm going to have Pastor give us a pledge and a closing, if you would.
Okay, so not to belabor the time, I do want to encourage you guys to do one thing. I had a moment where I didn't have to, but I chose to step back and smell the roses. I have some roses growing on the side of my house, and there's 3 rose bushes, and they are like in full bloom. And when I passed by them, the colors just jumped out at me. They were so beautiful and so vibrant that I did a little Facebook story, and I noticed a lot of people commenting on it. And it reminded me of the book by Alice Walker, In Search of Our Mother's Gardens. And so I encourage you all to go and read that book if you haven't, and if you have, reread it, or skim through it again, because it's a book about self-care and about the ancestral need to find that space within us where we have the opportunity to create, where we have the opportunity to be creator, be creative, and to find something within ourselves that touches that place that we've been talking about self-care and self-love, self-healing, that wasn't afforded our ancestors because they didn't have the space or the time that was necessary to do that. So they had to find ways, but we are more free now to be able to do that. So we have to encourage ourselves to do that. And in that vein, we're going to do a pledge. So there are 5 declarative statements or affirmations to overcome the strong Black woman syndrome. So I'm going to repeat each statement, and then you're going to repeat after me. So I encourage you to unmute yourself, because the sister circle is going to speak into the universe, and we are going to declare some good things over ourselves. So the first statement or the first affirmation is, I am worthy of being helped. I am worthy
of being helped.
Yes, I love it. Second affirmation, I will ask for help when I need it.
I
will
ask
ask for help when I need it.
Yes. My needs are important.
My
needs are important.
I will communicate my needs.
I
will communicate my needs.
I will prioritize my health.
I will
prioritize my health.
I see Sandra, she was like, okay, all right, yeah. And the last one, so listen carefully, the last one, I honor myself, my family, and my ancestors by taking care of my health.
I honor myself, my family, my ancestors by taking care of myself.
Yes.
Yay.
All right, ladies.
Yay.
Right.
That was some good stuff. Thank you, ladies.
Good stuff.
Absolutely.
All right. Ladies, this has been a pleasure as usual. Miss Jonnie, I don't know what you need to do, but you need to do something to get us back together to continue this circle, maybe in a couple of months or something like that. I already gave you one charge about the month of June, so we need to talk about that. I may even find you some funding to do it, and just having some informal conversations. I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. Thank our amazing panel. Now, let me say something about our panel. Our panel, I can't say enough positive things about the members on our panel. And I'm going to add this. They open themselves to their vulnerabilities to share with the circle, so that hopefully something that one of us said made you say, oh, it's not just me. Because there is no such thing as you're the only person going through something. So do keep that in mind. And so our panel have opened their hearts to you and expressed something personal to them that they felt that you needed to know to help you in your journey, to help you see that you're not the only person going through something. You heard me say it, you've heard many of us say something, and that made a connection directly to you. You can say, wow, that happened to me. That's what this circle is supposed to do. And I encourage you that if you don't have a circle, go get one. There's a few of your girlfriends around somewheres that y'all are having the same experience. And when you're talking to each other about that experience, it makes that experience go a little easier, go a little faster, go a little better, whatever word you want to use for that particular experience. So please consider that as you move forward. So that's my challenge to you. But I think Pastor Jonafa gave us a pledge. And notice that all those things are about what you're going to do for you, right? You come first. Because if you don't come first, as I think Pastor Jonafa said at the very beginning, you don't put on that mask first, right? And then everybody gonna be in trouble. So put your mask on first. And I don't mean that one that we're wearing for COVID. Although I kind of do mean that, but you get my point. You get my point. Jonnie, anything you want to, any last remarks before we go?
No, I just thank everyone for participating. I guess that's my new name, is I'm a connector. Because, I didn't know how this was going to work out, but I just knew the caliber of people that we have here, it was going to be outstanding, and you did not disappoint at all. And I just appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for coming.
All right. Good night, everybody. Y'all have the rest of a good weekend.